Hello, Internet! We're
Yay!
back! For better or for worse.
Live show 2.
However, it's not good. So this is our Wednesday YA live show. We are discussing a book,
Dun, dun, dun.
Legend by Marie Lu. And before we do anything else, we should tweet out a link.
We should. So, Liz, I need that link.
Okay. Wait, is the one for the YouTube page the right one?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm still a little new to this.
We need those little screens that are like, technical difficulties.
Liz Anderson is still trying to figure out how the internet works.
I hear so much typing. Okay, while Liz is trying to figure that out, let me just say we're doing a second live show because we loved the response last time. A lot of you showed up and got really involved, and it was super awesome. So thank you guys for making it super awesome and for hopefully coming back, but I don't know who's back yet, so I guess we'll see. But I'm just going to trust that you're here. I'm not talking to myself. I'm that weirdo.
And if you're not here, then we will talk to you after the chat because this will probably be on YouTube once we're done. But we're here to discuss our January book. Like I said, it was Legend by Marie Lu. So we can start off by giving a general rating. Misty, do you want to kick us off here?
I don't think it will be a surprise to anyone that I wasn't a super huge fan of this, was a little bit disappointed. I mentioned that on Goodreads when I was maybe 60 or so pages in that I was wanting to give up and I needed a push. It did get better for me, and I'm vaguely curious what happens, but I thought I was really going to like this, judging from the feedback when it came out, so...
Yeah, this was a struggle. And it's not even like I got into, like, it started off well and then it became a struggle. Like, it got a little bit better towards the end, but for me, most of this book was just not very good. It started off poorly for me, and it didn't really get a lot better. And like you said, this has gotten so many rave reviews since it came out that I was really expecting better.
Yeah, hugely positive reviews.
I took a look at the what am I thinking? At the reviews of the second book, which I think is Prodigy on Goodreads, and they were all like 4 or 5-star reviews, and I'm just like, did I read the same book as the rest of the internet? And I even felt that way looking at the reviews of this one, because there were so many people who were just 5 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, 4 stars, and I'm like, was it really that good?
When I asked on Goodreads, you know, for someone to give me a push because I was doubting it, a lot of people told me that the second book was their favorite or the third book was their favorite, but pretty much no one said that this one was. So, you know, maybe it gets better. But we also kind of discussed in the comments that it could just be the timing of it. So when this came out, however many years ago, a couple years ago, maybe it wasn't as done to death. I think part of what bothered me, at least, wasn't necessarily that the writing was horrible, but that I felt like I knew every little bit of it, every line of it before it got there, not just in plot, but even in the writing itself. And maybe if I had read it when it came out, I wouldn't have had that issue. But I did.
Another technical moment, Misty, you should retweet the link if you haven't already.
I'm grabbing it right now.
I know exactly what you mean about saying that it felt like it had been done already. I started this, and I was like, this sounds an awful lot like the Hunger Games. And, I mean, even the way the world was built reminded me a little bit of Divergent. I didn't necessarily feel like it added anything fresh or new to the dystopian genre. It's sad because I wind up feeling like The Hunger Games is the best dystopian trilogy out there. I just literally have not read any dystopians that have been as good as that. And I wish I could say that I have, but...
I would say I have. I'm a big fan of dystopias, and especially adult dystopias. I don't know that it's necessarily even the world that bothered me, because I think you connect with the characters in a dystopia. That's what makes you care, and the concepts can kind of be done to death. These two were both just very special snowflakes. There were no flaws. They were like the same person, and that just didn't work for me.
Yeah, there was definitely some issues with characters here. I mean, I did have some issues with Day and June, but actually I had more issues with our villain, which we can get into later, because I feel like we're still just kind of doing our basic overview here. I mean, I liked them okay. It was just, there was nothing really in a sea of dystopian protagonists. I'm not sure what was supposed to make these two stand out.
I don't know that anything was. I mean, I don't wanna trash Marie. I met her. She was lovely. She was darling, and I really wanted to like this because of that.
I'm not trying to trash her. I'm just saying I didn't like her characters.
Right. No, I didn't. And I felt like, I don't know. I think you can kind of fall into a trap, especially with YA, and maybe because kids like that more, with creating these perfect, amazing, wow type of characters, but that's always going to read flat. And it's much more exciting if there are some flaws and there are some weaknesses and some real danger because of it. I mean, some of this is absolutely ridiculous. Day can scale a building with a bum knee that he got as a 10-year-old in like 4 seconds? What? Like, come on. Give me some kind of reality to base it in, or I'm never going to believe that anything bad is going to happen with any lasting consequences, and you need that in a dystopia.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wish I had more to elaborate on with that, but it is very true. I mean, you do need to have characters with flaws. I will say, this to me almost read more like a movie script than a book. It was just that fast-paced.
Very much so.
Well described. And you just kind of wonder, like, would this really have been better served if it had been a movie in the first place and not a novel?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that part of the pitch was as a movie, because I always read the acknowledgments. I don't know if you guys do, but I do. And one of them is all about the agent finding the right film studio home for the book. And now this is acknowledgments for, I mean, the first book in the series. So obviously that was part of the book deal or came right after the book deal, which means that it probably was written with that in mind, with franchising in mind. And I think things suffer when that happens.
Yeah. I remember seeing that in the acknowledgments, but I guess I assumed that that meant that the book had come out and then it had been optioned, which is what I feel like what happens most of the time. But of course, since I don't work in publishing, it really is kind of a mystery to me.
It does happen frequently. However, the wording of it to me seemed more like real contract negotiations rather than optioning. I mean, it does happen a lot, and it's a field now that's really being mined because YA has been doing really well as adaptations, but because of that, things are being written more as package deals and written with the idea of adapting, and I don't love that.
I don't either. I mean, I think that we should really be working to put out books so that they can be great literature that is available to teenagers to read.
If you make it strong enough and build the following enough, it can be adapted, and it will be loved because of that. If you make it like a poorly written or poorly adapted screenplay that we're just putting in book form, I mean, how often do you say, oh, I really loved the novelization of that movie?
Yeah.
You don't. You love the book.
It's kind of like that point where it would be really great if publishers could do a ton of advertising for every single thing that they put out, but realistically they don't quite have the money to do that. So if they do kind of end up having to guess and like deciding where exactly to put their money and how to make their priorities, which again we're getting off topic already.
Imagine that.
But it is a good point to consider,
Yeah. I don't know. I think there are a lot of things that kind of aided in it falling flat, and I just think that was one of them. It seemed like it was written toward very specific goals and not necessarily the best story possible being one of those goals.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you wonder how much, like, the characters being really perfect and people who can scale a building with a bum knee and do stuff like that, I almost wonder how much of that was really, like, just an oversight, just they've seen it so many times that they were like, oh, like, this is done well in other series. This is clearly going to sell well again.
I don't know. I think it's just kind of a trap that some writers fall into. I think that we love the fantasy aspects and we want to create these strong characters, not realizing that overcoming your flaws or working around your flaws is often what makes someone strong, not having no flaws. That makes them a robot.
I mean, there are teenagers and adults out there who would rather read about characters who are perfect. They would rather read about a character that they cannot be than someone who has the same problems that they do. So
Absolutely.
it is serving that audience. We just happen to not be that audience.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of expectations. If you go in and you're expecting something that's a little on the fluffy side, maybe a little kind of wish fulfillment-y, then you would interpret the story much differently than if you're going in expecting this strong dystopia, this thing that people have been raving about on Goodreads, and then you're like, what?
When I think about it, I'm really not sure if any of the reviews on Goodreads praise the world building for this book.
I tried my best to avoid specifics in reviews because I don't want to be biased going in. I just kind of look at the overall tone, so I really couldn't tell you. I just know I read a lot of action-packed and fast-paced.
Yeah, that is. See, well, I think a lot of people that I happen to be friends with had just rated it, or they just said like, "Oh, I like the characters. This one was really well paced," and the world building just didn't really get mentioned. Which, how did we feel about the world building? I was not in love with it.
I think it maybe wasn't necessarily the focus yet. I have a feeling that it's one of those things where they're going to build it up later down the line, and you'll find more about, you know, this rift between the areas of this country. But I think for now it was more just supposed to be about the character, but the characters were really one and the same.
It felt like in a lot of ways most of the world building was really more setup material. It was about trying to get us ready for book 2 and all of the world building that will presumably happen in it, which if you happen to know if there's a lot of world building in book 2, please by all means chime in and let me know. Or
some differentiation between Day and June. Do they start to be their own characters, or do they fall in love and just merge into one amorphous J-blob?
I didn't realize that amorphosing is what happened when you fell in love.
I mean, it is when you're the same person. When you're the same 15-year-old person with a perfect score and you're the only two in the world, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous. I wasn't sure which, by the way, huge spoiler, but I wasn't sure how I felt about that particular plot twist.
It was it was the most predictable of plot twists. Like, you wanted to believe it wasn't coming because it was just too on the nose. Like, whatever. I don't know. I think that's how I felt about a lot of it.
Didn't entirely see it coming, and then when it did, I was like, man, I should have known it was going there. I just got played.
I had a feeling, and I was hoping that it wouldn't necessarily be the case. I don't know. I wanted this to kind of not fall into all the same traps that every other book falls into. Like, set yourself apart a little bit, but I don't think that ever really happened.
Okay, so since we're talking about the 1500 thing, there's a particular point that I want to bring up that bothered me. So you know how they said they had all of the different things that people could be cast into once they got their score? And it was like, you can work for the government, you can work for this, you can work for that. And you know how the lowest one was that if you like totally failed, you went to the labor camps, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't understand. Why were more people not upset about that? I mean, good things don't
and they're 10. They're 10.
Labor camps.
It's
you
not
go
even
to labor.
It's not even a question, like, when you actually stop to think about this, it's not even just a question of how ridiculous that is in the human rights violations, but they are 10 years old. 10 being sent to the labor camps, or as it turns out, not so much. I'm like, really?
Yeah, like,
no one bats an eye at this.
In the Hunger Games, at least it seemed like there were still child labor laws. Are we to assume that literally, like, every single thing just went down the toilet in this world?
And that everyone's fine with it. Like, in the Hunger Games, you know it's a punishment, and people are really, really just broken up about this. It's their children. Here it's like, your kid's getting carted off to the labor camps, and if they are just in a labor camp, you never get to hear from them again? They're not allowed to, like, write you a letter, or you're not allowed to visit them? Obviously not, because they're not actually going to labor camps, so you just are okay with that? There's no rebellion ever about this? Okay.
Or, I mean, maybe we're supposed to believe that if there is rebellion, it's so squelched down that nobody ever knows except for the evil government.
I mean, you have to have some kind of basis. If you're going to make those type of really huge changes, you need to let us know. There needs to be something slipped in there, like, oh, about the rebellion that was quashed, 20 years ago, or some secret society that's working to get kids out of the labor camps. Like, there needs to be something. You don't just, like, toss that out there.
That's just in book 2, and we need to read more books in the series.
That's how they get you.
Well, see, the thing is...
this crappy book with so many questions that you have no choice but to read the second book.
That's the thing. I'm thinking about checking the second book. I mean, come on.
Oh, you tell us.
Played by the publishing houses, and it's not funny, except it's hilarious.
Do we need to read Prodigy? And once we read Prodigy, do we need to read Champion? And then once we read Champion, do we need to go see the movies when they come out because we have no other choice? Like, let us know, guys. Weigh in.
Well, I mean, the thing is, make it crappy if you want. Don't answer my questions, but I feel like I shouldn't be left with this many questions. I mean,
absolutely.
Give me enough that I'm not like, what did I just read? Don't leave me asking that question. I mean, leave me with something like, ooh, yeah, I gotta get another taste of that. Yeah. But not this. Really? You're going to leave that much information out to get me to read the sequel?
And I have to, because otherwise I feel like I have no closure. It's the hook.
Exactly.
And it's the... Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of feeling like you're trying to play me or withhold things to give me no choice. Like, make me come back because it's so good, not because I feel like, really, that's where we're going, really. Not a fan of being played. No pulling of the strings, please.
Exactly.
All right, so Julie was not a fan either. She said it fell flat, and she's curious how the world got like this and the split between the two countries, because she has no idea why they're fighting, and I don't know that any of us do. What did make them separate out? And how is it that it's like California, basically, that becomes this repressive society and really kind of like segregated, and it's just all a little bizarre.
Well, Misty, it's because they have all the startups and the best weather.
So they're like, you know what, you guys can keep the rest of the country. We've got Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we're just going to go ahead and draw a line in the sand, and we're the Republic now.
By the way, comments are not showing up on YouTube. I don't know if you guys are either A, not commenting, or B, I did something wrong. I did what anything told me. So if you're commenting and I'm not answering, please tweet instead. Like I said, I don't know if it's me or just you guys are very quiet. It's okay to be quiet.
Are you getting any kind of comments at all, Liz? Because I can see a few.
I thought I did what it took to list all available comments, but I will go and...
Do you want to just switch over? You take over Twitter, and I'll look at the comments? Because I do have some.
Yeah, definitely. Take a look at the comments, Misty.
Yep.
Sorry that I'm not better at technology, you guys.
D-Books does say that the world building is more developed in Prodigy, so that's good, but, I mean, I think anything would probably be more developed. And we have, let's see, there's never any reason to keep reading something that is not good or leaves out that much. I will absolutely agree with that, and that I wouldn't have finished this, honestly, if it wasn't for tonight. If it wasn't for discussing with you guys, it would have been set down.
Yeah, I think I would have too. So we really we worked hard for you guys.
Yeah, we were texting each other like, oh God, why?
What have we done to ourselves?
And the weird thing is, it moves very fast. Like, when I actually would read it, it goes really quickly. But the pauses, once I'd put it down and not wanting to pick it up again, was making it take up a lot of my time, and I was getting a little mad. D-Books on Twitter asks, how old are June and Day? We said they were 15. Are 15.
we wrong about that?
Nope, 15. They say it multiple times.
15, and they have a 1500. I doubt that's a coincidence. Maybe it is.
Yeah. It's probably very calculated, honestly.
It sounds like it couldn't be a coincidence, but I guess it could be.
Yeah. And that, I think, is part of the whole believability thing, because you have to scale it back. So if they're 15 now, and Day has been a criminal for multiple years and has done all of these crazy crimes and shenanigans, then he was like 11 or 12 scaling buildings and robbing banks. So I'm not saying that that can't be the case, but you've got to really give me some groundwork. Why is he so super special that he is able to do all these things? To the point that they felt the need to experiment on him and find out how to create a better soldier with his tissue. You know, like, there's got to be something that makes you that way, unless you really are just a prodigy, which the second book is called, so maybe that's
I mean, as someone who works with children, I would almost find it more believable if they were like, look, a toddler scaled a 4-story building, okay?
I mean, they are pretty impressive. They can get into anything.
That was at the top of it, and they couldn't have it.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Or even, like, have they been experimented on, or is the government trying to create the super soldier and, you know, their results of it? It just needs to not feel so coincidental, because coincidences like that break you out of the believability if there's not something explaining the coincidence.
By the way, we should totally do a Mythbusters Wednesday YA.
Oh my God, yes.
Like, can we scale a 4-story building?
Excuse me, sir, that's not possible. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because I'm really gonna do that. No, I'll do all the stuff that involves eating. Really. Can this food really be this good? I don't know if we've had any books. I'm sorry. I feel like Misty is here for like the real analytical stuff, and I'm here for like the jokes.
You're the jester. You're the Wednesday Way court jester.
I'm cool with it. So I wanted to talk about our villain, who was Captain Jameson.
There were a lot of villains, I'd say. Pretty much anyone in the Republic.
True, but I especially wanted. She was the one who stood out to me. Not a fan of her.
For being over the top and cheesy. Like, she needed a mustache to twirl.
Yeah, who was the guy in Scarlet that you had this same complaint about?
Gisborne.
Yeah, it was the same. Like, I mean, she was just always barking orders, and she wanted to torture the teenagers and do all of these terrible things, and she never had a human side.
I expected her to, like, actually be described as cackling at some points.
Well, she probably was.
She probably was.
It was just like there was no human side. You get that she wanted to do it for the Republic, but why does she care so much about her precious Republic?
Or even if it is just that she's wanting to climb the ladder and, you know, whatever, be the most powerful or something, you still have to have layers. You still don't... If you're the adult, you don't necessarily get involved in the 15-year-old's business and feel the need to come and talk to them in their cells when you've got lackeys that do that. You don't feel the need to Scooby-Doo and spill your guts to them. You don't, like, get in these little petty, like, cat fights. It just never felt like she was the adult or the sane person that would be given a position of power in the scenario.
I mean, sometimes with YA, I do feel like authors get so focused on writing characters that are meant to... be teenagers and have the judgment of teenagers that they sometimes make their adults like that too.
Very much so.
Okay, so we have 2 more comments from Twitter. D Books, who was asking how old they were, says that it felt like they were older. And Julie says, that list of crimes seems even more crazy now that I realize that he was about 12.
Yeah, he was 10 when they sent him away, and he escaped, I think, at 11 or 12, so it's
Did we
pretty
even
crazy.
hear anything about his time away? I mean, the time between, like, when he went from living with his family to living on the street.
Not, like, you hear nothing other than when he gives her the story of, like, how he got his bum knee and that they had, you know, sliced him open and he got the injection in his eye or whatever. That's the only thing you hear from that to her listing of crimes when she's going through, like, the files.
I'm impressed that you seem to, like, have figured out almost, like, kind of a time range there.
I just finished this last night, so this is all fresh in my head. I saved this to the last minute because I couldn't bear to pick it up. So it's all pretty recent.
I finished this over the weekend because, frankly, I was really excited to get to my next book, which you would be excited to if you were reading it, which actually Misty already has. But again, getting sidetracked.
Yeah, I kept telling myself to push through it, but it wasn't happening. It doesn't
feel
help
bad.
either
Like,
that I've been
I
watching
feel
her
like
to
I
Dixie.
ignored more details while reading this, but I was just like, oh God, make it stop. Not really,
Yeah.
actually. I mean,
Okay, so
it's very
go
strange.
ahead.
I've been doing that on the metro.
Just rolling around on the floor, like, oh God, why? And that is
Actually,
why Liz is banned from the Metro.
there were a few pages at the very end where I was like, the writing just got good. There were a couple sentences like that, and then I was like, why? Why did it take
Speaking of
the
just
last
getting good,
2 pages
yeah,
of the book to start admiring the prose?
because that's what hooks you in so that you go buy the next book. It's totally, totally planned out. But speaking of finally liking something, D Books asks, what was your favorite part, if any?
When it was over.
Oh, truer words. I mean, there were bits and pieces I liked.
In seriousness, I think kind of the last 2 pages were my favorite part. I'm going to see if there's anything I can read while Misty talks about her favorite part.
I liked when June was kind of living on the streets with them and kind of getting to know Day and starting to question things. And even though it was really kind of unbelievable and so super convenient, I did also kind of like the part where she goes back through her brother's journals and sees everything that he's kind of discovered.
Okay, so I do want to read one quote that stood out to me. It's on page 304. The book ends on page 305, so I'm not kidding about this. But it's where he's talking about where he got his name from, and he says, each day means a new 24 hours. Each day means everything's possible again. You live in the moment, you die in the moment, you take it all one day at a time. He looks towards the railway car's open door where streets of dark water blanket the world. You try to walk in the light. I just thought that was really interesting, and I kind of wonder how it's going to play into the second 2 books.
I did like that too. However, that does lead me something to I wanted to talk about, and it kind of joins up with a question. So Laura asks, I was told it was dual perspective, and I was wondering if it was well done. Yes, it is dual perspective. June tells some and Day tells some, and they are different colored fonts. So Day's is gold. June's, I guess, would be silver, but it's just like a, standard blackish, maybe dark gray or something. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. Probably not at all. It actually hurt my eyes trying to read Days. It was just too light. It started to strain my eyes. But the whole him being called, yeah, it bothered me, especially because I read at night, so the light is already a little lower, so then when I'm straining to read a light color, wasn't doing it for me. But the whole being called Day thing, I totally felt like that was a very calculated decision for the gimmick of having the 2 colors. So it was a nice tie-in at the end, making it work, but I felt like it was a little forced on the plot, probably because of they wanting to do that little woohoo, look at this trick.
I can't tell if there was anything they were trying to do, especially with June's name. June's name. I mean, I felt like they talked a little bit about Matthias and her nicknames with him and whatnot, but aside from that, I'm not sure if I see the significance.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's something that will be revealed down the line, but I didn't really see anything there either.
Yeah. By the way, what did we think when we learned who killed Matthias?
I saw it coming. I knew it. I was disappointed in how it was revealed. I would have liked it more. We're going to go ahead and have spoilers, because if you're watching this, you should have read the book, and if you want to complain about spoilers, that's on you.
You have a mute button. Use it.
You shouldn't be watching a discussion of something if you haven't read it. You can if you'd like to, but you can't complain. You waive your right to complain about spoilers at that point, is my theory. But anyway, so I would have much more liked it and respected the writing if Thomas was still a good guy doing what he felt he had to do because those were his orders. Instead, he starts off as this good guy. June describes him as being this great, upstanding guy, and he's always been a friend of the family. But then she starts seeing him doing these things, and he's got like this maniacal glint in his eye, and he seems to be enjoying it too much, or he's just totally cold. And that, again, is the mustache-twirling villain. Like, give me some conflict there. It would be much more believable and interesting.
The way his character read to me, it was, if this was somebody that I knew in real life, I would be like, is this person honestly to goodness mentally ill, because this is just
It's
not
Jekyll
how
and
I'm
Hyde.
reacting to this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just not. And I mean, I guess you can still go there if you're going to make the claim that that's why he was chosen, that's why he's handpicked to be part of her squad or whatever. They do these psychological profiles, and maybe she's choosing these people that are total sociopaths. But if that's the case, you've got to do the sort of background that backs that up. You've got to give us something there that's going to make that seem like it's valid and not just that everyone is crazy pants.
I would also like to point out that if you go that route, you are juggling a lot in your book.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's great to have that kind of depth, but I mean, best of luck to you if you could, like, on keeping that in the air without having it all crash down on your foot.
Yeah, it just doesn't. You can't have that many sociopathic characters without some kind of explanation, and that's something that's hard to explain away. Like, you can't have, I mean, you have the commander, you have Thomas, you have Chian, or whatever his name is, and pretty much every, like, Republic soldier that they meet, it's all just a little too, it's too black and white. And then you have the good guys that are, like, stumbling upon things and finding these things out, and then, being killed for it or fighting the good fight. Not everybody is going to fall nicely into one or the other.
This is where I start wondering again how much we're just the wrong audience for this book.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if a teenager reading this who maybe like hasn't seen as many like terrible current events, or just watches a lot of movies where things are very black and white. Like, I wonder if it would just seem much more natural to some teenage readers because of their life experiences.
And that's entirely possible, but I think that does a huge disservice. First of all, it does a disservice to your reader and their intelligence. You're just assuming that they're going to take the easy way out. And not that some won't, and not that it's not sometimes enjoyable to just have the easy decisions made. But you're also doing your reader a disservice by not presenting some difficulty and not giving them some things that are a little less palatable or things that are just a little harder to reconcile and are more true to life. I mean, I think personally I respect it a lot more, and I think most teenagers and even middle graders respect it a lot more if it seems like you're respecting their intelligence and giving them honesty and not easiness.
Julie from Twitter says, I knew it too. I thought it was the commander, though, and I assume she's talking about Matthias's death. Yeah, that definitely did seem like a possibility when I was reading.
I thought that June kind of implied that it was both of them. Like, she thought that it was Thomas acting on the commander's orders and kind of maybe wanting to get ahead, but mostly just blindly following what he was told.
I feel like what ultimately mattered was that it was an inside job.
Yeah.
And actually, now that I think about it, going back to the favorites parts thing, I did like the part where she somehow managed to find the mistakes in Matthias's journals as she was reading them.
I mean, everything is so convenient.
I mean, it was really convenient. It feels like there was a long time, like, Matthias was planning her to learn the truth for a long time, and considering the amount of time that he spent planning it, she learned really quickly.
And she just somehow manages to get every single one that was misspelled. Like, he didn't accidentally misspell a word anywhere, and she caught every single one to have just the right amount of letters. Like, it is nice to say they know each other so well and they've set out this plot, but you've got to there's got to be something to kind of point you in that direction. Like, to just stumble upon it and get everything perfect, whatever, she's a 1500, so I guess maybe it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's just a little, it goes into kind of like caricature sometimes. It's just a little too over the top.
I don't know, I guess I always just like it when little codes like that are planted in books, but you do make a really excellent point. I mean, it sure is convenient.
Yeah. I mean, I like things like that too, and I like that he had the little blog and it had to use her handprint and stuff like that. I like the codes, and I like that they're kind of figuring things out, but make it believable. There's nothing that says that things can't be a little more of a struggle. It's better if it is a little bit of a struggle and then suddenly there's a breakthrough, not just she sat down, reads through it, and, oh, hey, wait a minute, this is spelled wrong. Oh, wait, that's spelled wrong. I've got it. I've got it all figured out. Like, I mean, just come on. Come on.
Yeah. It's very true. This is making me think about how much we would talk about convenience and believability if some actual dystopian event happened in real life.
We just sit there debating it like, well, this just isn't likely at all.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes even very unlikely things turn out to be true.
Absolutely. But it's, I think, a question of amount. You know, if everything that happens to be true is also something that happens to be unlikely, if they're just kind of piling up on each other, with each one you're getting further and further away from something that you can relate to and that seems like it has a basis in reality, and it starts to just become kind of silly.
It does, that's true. So, do you think that you're going to read book 2 here, or...
I don't know. Until I got to the last few pages, I was just going to ask people on Twitter to tell me what happened in the other 2 books, and not have to actually read them. But they are quick, so I might decide one day, but for now, I've got too many books that I think will actually be enjoyable to want to. And maybe it'll be made into a movie and I can just watch them.
That's true. I have serious guilt every time I start a series and I don't finish it.
Mm-hmm. I used to. I don't anymore, though.
Yeah, but I'm starting to get better about letting it go. You know, pulling Elsa, letting it go.
If you don't want to hear Liz sing, now is the time to turn away.
I'm not going to sing. I mean, I could get out some various Frozen swag I have, but I won't now. For now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't plan on that forever.
I used to not be able to not finish something that I'd started, so whether it was the book or the entire series. And then I think partly it was just some series that I was reading that were really long. I mean, some of them go 20 books long, and after a certain point I was like, oh god, no, I'm not finishing this. And blogging and having so many books and so many options and deciding this is not worth my time, this is a time suck. I now feel no guilt and no niggling sense in the back of my head saying you need to finish this. It doesn't bother me a bit to abandon it.
See, I'm like, but what if it becomes better in the later books and I'm missing out?
If someone can convince me that's the case, if someone whose reading is similar to mine and whose tastes I trust can convince me, then I would absolutely read it. Otherwise,
I was joking that makes me the victim because I would have to read it and tell you because we have similar reading tastes.
Yeah, you take that on and let me know. Here's the problem. You would tell me, oh, yeah, you got to read this. It gets so much better, just so that you could watch me be miserable.
I am not that bad.
I already know, because I would do it to you. It's true.
Yeah, I know.
We'll both have to read it. It'll be next year's Wednesday YA somewhere.
D Book says, I wanted Marie Lu to do the villain like it wasn't Divergent, which is an interesting point. That's fair.
I have not read it. Not gonna lie. I have Divergent, but I haven't read it.
And frankly, any memory that I have of the book Divergent has been replaced by GIFs of Theo James.
Mm-hmm. I have seen the movie, but that's pretty much all that comes to mind is just Theo James.
I mostly liked the movie because of Theo James, but it was actually a pretty good movie, all in all. But, I mean, like Theo James. He takes his shirt off. Come on.
I mean, it's Mr. Pamuk. Suddenly up there, doing amazing feats of amazingness.
Wait, was he Mr. Pamuk?
He was Mr. Pamuk.
Oh, I forgot that.
Totally was.
Also,
it threw me off at first when he was cast, but I got over it.
Lau on Twitter says, Puppy keeps interrupting my eavesdropping in the Wednesday YA book chat. Well, that's okay, because it's probably a pretty cute puppy.
I think that we need pictures. We need proof.
Yes, please tweet us pictures of the puppy. If your animals are watching with you, you should tweet us pictures of them. My parents' dog sometimes reads with me, but she's more like, Liz, sleep.
If Marley was in here, you would not, I would be... Like, the computer would be knocked over. He would be, like, panting in my face. It wouldn't work.
Yeah. Macy lives in Minnesota, so she can't distract me too much. But I'm always happy to distract her or be distracted by her when I see her.
And puppies are good distraction.
Yes. Let's see. What else is there to discuss? What other points do we want to touch on? How do we feel about the whole look of the finished copy? I always like to talk about this.
When it first came out, I didn't like it. I'm not entirely sure why. to me now it's kind of like iconic. I get it. I get what they're going for, and it's a symbol, and it's a symbol that will work well when they franchise as a movie, just like the Mockingjay.
I'm sorry I didn't spend much time staring at this because I take the dust jackets off when I read.
Yeah, R for Republic.
And Champion has a rose on it, and Prodigy might have a P. I would have to look it up.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So, I did really like, this is random, but I liked the foiling on the flap here. Whoa, metallic!
Yeah, they're really nicely designed. I feel like the whole being a packaged thing with the movie and all, I feel like more attention was paid to that, to packaging and to aesthetics and to the feel of the book, the idea of the book, than the substance of the book.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes.
It does. And unfortunately, it tends to sell well because of it, and I don't know that that is really helpful to anyone or to the industry.
Helpful if you want to have a pretty book on your shelves.
True, and they know that we fall for it, because Lord knows I have.
I have to admit that we read Unspoken last February, and I didn't really care for it as a book, but I kept it because I liked the cover.
Oh yeah, not getting rid of it. In fact, one of my least favorite books, and one of the most liked reviews on Goodreads because of how much it was my least favorite book, was Hush Hush. I really, really loathed it, but I kept it for a long time because of that damn cover.
You still have it?
No, I finally gave it away when I was moving because I didn't want to haul all those books. But no, I had it for a long time.
Moving will do that too. It'll be like, you are not worthy.
Oh yeah.
Whereas in my
same for Fallen.
Like, I have so many damn books to read.
Yeah. No, I'm a sucker, and I know I'm a sucker, and I have even said before that there are books that I've bought that I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna like, but I loved the cover and needed to have them. So I get it. Packaging is a good thing, but focus at least on there being some substance, on there being some kind of personality, something of you in the writing. Because even if I don't like a book, that doesn't mean that it's not a good book. It just might not be the book for me. But if it feels lifeless, and if it feels like there's no personality and it's robotic, then I'm going to quickly lose respect for you as a writer. And it might not be your fault, but it feels like a money grab almost, and not something with passion behind it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the voice for this one didn't really feel like a special voice. It felt like the voice of many other dystopian novels. Like, it felt like she was trying to be cinematic and tell us how perfect these teenagers were. And I just didn't get what was really supposed to be quirky and special and different about this book, and what was supposed to make me pick up this over Divergent, or The Hunger Games, or The Testing, or The Maze Runner.
Mm-hmm. And there also wasn't enough, like if you're going to do a dual POV book, there needs to be some differentiation between the POVs, and they sounded like if it hadn't been for the color, maybe that's why they did the two colors, so that you would know for sure who you were reading, because if it hadn't been for the color changes, I probably wouldn't have realized who I was reading when the chapters changed.
I mean, they didn't do names. Yeah, I've had issues. No, wait, it's you know what? I just realized it's actually at the top of the page.
The names, yeah. It says Day in June.
Yeah, it's at the top of the page. Which, by the way, publishers, if anyone's watching, don't put your book numbers on every other page. Not that that happened here, but it's a pet peeve of mine that I didn't know existed until I read a book recently, and it happened, and it was terrible.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Okay, anyways, moving on. Back on subject. There was a comment on Twitter. Julie is also freaking out because Theo James was Mr. Pamuk. So,
catch up, guys. Come on.
I think I heard it and then I forgot it, and now I've been reminded.
Like, it just makes me want someone to mash up, like, GIFs of the Dowager Countess and Theo. Like, someone make that happen. Like, Divergent Abbey.
Divergent Abbey is actually a dystopian society. That's where, like,
Divergent Abbey. If that is, if Divergent Abbey is not already a Tumblr, someone get it.
In the Hunger Games. You would totally win. I mean, it's very snappy dialogue on that show. It's like she's winning the social Hunger Games.
Oh, absolutely. Her words cut sharper than any knife.
What is a weekend?
That's one of my favorites. And when she sits down in the chair that spins.
I also like the telephone. Is this a device of communication or one of torture? Actually,
Just pretty much
really
everything she
dangerous
says.
question to ask in this book. Do not ask that question if you're a character in Legend, because chances are it's going to be something for torture. It looks like Misty might have. Oh, there you are. You went away.
I'm here.
Do we have any predictions about what's going to happen in book 2?
I haven't really thought about it. I've just kind of blocked the whole thing out. Okay, here's my predictions on the spot. They are going to get to know the Patriots more, and the Patriots are going to try to recruit them somehow. They're going to get separated. Something's going to happen to Tess. That's what I'm going to say. But she'll be okay. But they're going to be worried about her.
Really? Because I feel like it's going to be like Tess is in mortal danger.
Exactly, yeah.
They're going to get to know the Patriots, but they're not going to know if they can trust them.
Yeah.
And then the Muppets will show up and do a musical number about the whole thing. Don't ask me why that's in my predictions. It just occurred to me that it could happen.
I think you nailed it. Yeah.
You're going to make it cinematic. Why not include the Muppets?
All right, so we have a question on YouTube. It's why do you think that so many people gave it such a high rating?
I think some people love that fast pace.
Yes.
I think people are just really into that. I also think that maybe some people really cared about Day's family because I thought that they were a little bit more thoroughly built.
They were. And that actually leads to the next question we got, which was, what did you feel when Day's mom died?
That was sad.
For that matter, John. Everybody's dying. Day has no one.
I mean, every time someone died, I was like, oh, she killed another person. That's sad. I mean, there was just so many character deaths happening so fast that I didn't really process it. Like Matthias, she killed him before I could even get to know him or really care about him. Yeah. I mean, yes, it's sad for June, but on the other hand, how much do I really care that he's dead? I barely knew him.
I don't think we needed to care. I think we just needed a believable motivation for June to want to hunt down Day. And that's how I felt like with all of the deaths. They were very calculated plot points, which is fine. You shouldn't just do them willy-nilly. There needs to be a purpose. But it was definitely like, I need something to motivate and push this plot forward. Gonna kill this person now.
Yeah, it happened too quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we cover both those questions thoroughly, or do we need to go back on one of them?
No, I'd say we're good. The only other thing is, part of the reason that I thought maybe it got high ratings, other than the whole action-packed, which anything fast-paced I think is always going to get a high rating, because if someone tears through it, then they're like, oh, I must have loved it, so they rate it highly. The other thing is just what I said earlier, that I think maybe it came out at the right time, at the height of the dystopia craze, and people were just eating it up.
That's true. I wonder if everyone who gave it 5 stars would love it so much if they reread it
now. Yeah, and I highly doubt that. And that's okay. Sometimes it's just the right book at the right moment, but if you miss it sort of prime time, then
and of course,
you'll be wondering
let's not forget that there was some romance in this story. I mean, it was pretty subtle, but there was a hint of it there, and some people just love their romance, you know?
Was it subtle?
All about that.
I don't know that it was subtle. I think it was pretty, like, trains colliding.
Okay, it was more subtle than in some books that I've read.
That's true.
The YA books. I'm not comparing to romance books in my head here.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think it was a foregone conclusion. I mean, it's the obligatory love triangle, and it was here. And it's going to remain here, I'm sure.
We need to get more creative. Like, how about a love octagon?
Might get a little too risque for YA.
I think our brains just went to 2 different places.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Nor is it surprising where mine went. All right, so I would say we've probably covered
well enough to know.
I would say
Oh, Lolly sweetly tweeted a picture of her dog sunbathing, so I'm gonna go. Oh, two dogs! Oh, they're so cute.
retweet it.
One of them does look like a literal puppy, but I can't say for sure if it's a puppy or an adult.
I am finding and retweeting. Oh, they're making a dog circle.
I know, it's so cute. I'm sorry, I have a serious weakness in the face of canines.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anything with fur, honestly. I want to love it all.
Including furries.
Well, I will hug them, so I guess that counts.
Well, we'll say anything that's on four legs and has fur, I guess.
You can still. We're just gonna go ahead and let this conversation go.
I think I had to go on.
So the subtitle of this month's episode is or the time discussion of legend, or the time that they discussed furries. and love octagons. We apologize. We can normally edit this out when we're just doing Twitter discussions, but now we're live and you're seeing us, and you're seeing Liz blush pretty fiercely. So we're
What happens when I
winning.
don't enough? It also helps that the lamp behind me is red.
Hashtag winning.
Yeah. I should not have worn a bright red shirt.
It just adds to the effect.
I look like a freaking vegetable right now.
Was there anything else that we definitely want to talk about before we move on to February's picks?
I would just like to say I am surprised that this got a starred review from Kirkus. Let's see.
Did it?
They say, a gripping thriller in dystopic future Los Angeles. This is no didactic near future warning of present evils, but a cinematic adventure featuring endearing, compelling heroes. I don't know how many Kirkus reviews you guys have read, but they like to just rip into stuff sometimes. I mean, sometimes I read Kirkus reviews and I'm like, damn, don't you think that was a little harsh?
Someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
I do tend to think of that, like, they're generally thought of as being reviewers that don't really like as much and that are a little bit fussier. So I was actually kind of surprised that they seemed to favor this one as much as they did. Who knew?
Again, I think it just came out at the right time. And maybe since then we've had our standards, had the bar kind of raised. I don't know. Yeah,
and I mean, I do see their point about it being cinematic, and, you know, I'm like, but it's literature, with my monocle and my smoking jacket and my pipe. And maybe I do really need to accept it as more of a cinematic book and less of a literary book. Maybe I just need to embrace what I have.
You know, but I have read other books that I could tell were supposed to be cinematic, and I have read other books by authors whom I've had conversations with, and they've said that they use a screenplay writing style or a movie act writing style and still didn't necessarily have problems with it, because it's all about the personality and the originality that you inject, no matter what format and what style you use. So it's still just, it felt a little shallow. It felt like she didn't really dig deep into it.
Okay, so should we talk about the February book?
Yes, because we've bashed on it enough, and I feel bad.
Do you really?
She told me to walk in the light. Look, she was so nice in person, and I feel like a dick now because I'm like, we're just ripping on this book so bad. But you know,
I don't think you need to feel like a dick. I mean, we are not just reviewers. We are also people. You know.
Right. I mean, and it doesn't mean I don't like her. She was perfectly nice. I don't have to like her stuff. I still feel like an ass, though.
It happens.
It does. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. But anyway, on to February.
Yes, I'm going to let Misty explain how we're choosing the February book because it's her evil concoction.
Yes, so we like to change it up every month and kind of keep you guys on your toes. So this month, Liz and I both chose one book that we're wanting to read, but we're not letting you know what those books are. Instead, we're just going to read you a little snippet from the beginning of it, and you're going to vote either book 1 or book 2, and we'll let you know next Wednesday which one won.
How much are we reading?
I want to read, it's about a paragraph, because I like where mine ends. It has a nice kind of finish to it, so I'd say about a paragraph, but, I mean, if it's just a line, will do you, whatever. Not, you know, the whole chapter, no cheating. You can't win by quantity. We're reading this right now. This is the February book.
That would be copyright infringement, so we're not really Okay, so Misty, why don't you go first?
Okay. So, not telling you anything about it, not telling you if you know which book this is, if you recognize it, please don't spoil it for people. Just purely vote on which one catches your attention and you want to read. So, here's my pick. Tonight at supper, over capon and relish, my father ruined my life. He smiled big, scrubbed his lips with the end of his cloak, and said, "We're moving house." Thank the Blessed Virgin. I sat up straighter and smoothed my kirtle. I'm weary to thimbles of Coventry. Will we be back at Edgeley Hall in time for the Maypole? No, sweeting. We're not going back to Edgeley. We're moving to Carnarvon. What in God's name is that? It's a town in Wales? I'm in my chamber now. I will never speak to him again. Unless he buys me a new pelison for the journey. So that is my little snippet.
Okay, here is mine. I am actually not going to read the very first sentence because that is too obvious, but here it is. If only they had taught me how to watch innocents die as well as they taught me how to kill, I would be far better prepared for this nightmare into which I've been thrust. I pause at the foot of the winding steps to see if I am being watched. The scullery women scrubbing the marble hall, the sleepy page dozing against the doorway, either one of them could be a spy. Even if neither has been assigned to watch me, someone is always willing to tattle in the hope of earning a few crumbs of favor.
Ooh. So I'm going to say that I would have a really hard time choosing between both of these. I am a big proponent of deciding what to read by the first line or the first little snippet. If it catches me, I will get it, and if it doesn't, then I'll put it back. And both of these would immediately catch my attention. So good luck and pick a good one, but they're going to be good either way. Hopefully, yeah. We need a good month after this.
Some kind of poll up afterwards, maybe? We have to decide that.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and tweet at us for now. Use the hashtag WednesdayYA and just tell us either Misty's pick or Liz's pick. But we will put up a post about it too, so you can... And
another word for a hashtag fun trivia is an octothorpe.
It's a what? What's it called?
Octothorpe?
I've never heard this in my life.
I heard it because I went to a trivia at a bookstore that has a reputation for being very intellectual and whatnot.
Fun.
Yes.
I'm going to start saying that. Like, instead of, hashtag YOLO. I would never in my life say that. I'm just going to abandon. So I'd say that's probably about it for tonight. Anything else? Any last comments, questions, concerns?
Thank you all for joining us. We are very happy that you came and watched and spectated.
If for whatever reason you know someone wanted to come tonight and missed it, or you just hopped in at the very last minute and didn't catch most of it, it will be available. It normally processes for a few hours, so it should be available in the morning, and I will be posting it on the Book Rat tomorrow.
Yeah, so, and if you want to watch the whole thing again, then, well, you're very brave.
But people did last time, so, gold stars all around for you guys.
That's true. People who were not us, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not watching an hour of us talking again. Had enough of you.
Yeah.
But that's all. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for tuning in and chatting with us.
Tell us what you want to read in February. By next Wednesday, we're going to have an announcement up on both of our blogs and probably on Twitter telling you what it is. And it's going to be awesome.
Tweet at us. Misty's pick, Liz's pick.
Misty's pick. Misty is at the Book Rat. I am at Liz Pat Anders. Don't listen to Misty. You know my pick was better.
Misty's
also,
pick.
Don't feel bad for Misty. She gets to pick the March book because it's her birthday.
That's true. But you know what? That's cheating. You're trying to bias our audience right now, and that's just not cool.
I've done that before, and it's worked. Can I just go ahead and say that? Remember that time when I threw Grave Mercy in, and it totally won?
Cheaters aren't supposed to prosper, guys. Do not allow this to happen.
Here I am. Awesome.
Yeah, but let us know. Either way, I'm going to be happy to read whatever we pick this month. So let us know over the next few days, and we'll let you know on Wednesday what we're reading.
Okay, that's it. Bye!
Bye!